Aloha, siblings. In this video, I'm not exactly sure how to describe it off the top of my head now. I'll probably come up with something after I've edited it. I'm just going to ramble about some stuff, try to do some, basic discussion of mental health or attitudes or something like that, kind of preparatorily leading into something that might be meditative, and then ending with some NNSBB sort of meditation, lull you to sleep or spaced out or tingle or something like that. Anyway, that's the theory. It's kind of vague and, it is what it is, and we'll see, we'll see. It'll unfold as it should. There you go. Getting all weird and metaphysical, I suppose. So before we start our weird metaphysical NNSBB journey, let me do the YouTube stuff. The liking and the subscribing and the links in the description, and including Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee and my original channel. Go check out videos from my original channel. That's a helpful thing to me. There's also a video link in the description that explains all of that confusing nonsense if you're curious about it. And I suppose the only other thing to really explain before I just start moving forward is that NNSBB is not necessarily stoned, but beautiful. And it's a thing that I kind of got the idea from Hendrix. It's the initials for that phrase, right? Not necessarily stoned, but beautiful. And I use it as sort of it's my own rating system. So when you see that, it means it's rated trippy or weird or something. It's silly, but it amuses me, so I use it. And I guess that's it. So I guess the first thing to start with is a thing that I'll probably start with in the future, and I'm sure that I've started with in the past, and it's kind of self-referential at this point now, is repetition. That there is in fact value in repetition. Think rehearsal, think mantras, that sort of thing. And because I'm pretty sure that I've told both of these stories before, they're not my stories. I did not invent them. I'm pretty sure at least one of them I heard from a lecture by Alan Watts, maybe even both of them, because they're both kind of right up his alley of stuff, and I'm too lazy to go try to remember and research it and figure out what it is. But so the first one is a story of these two monks, and they're walking along and on a journey, right? They're from the same sect or brothers or whatever, right? And they're cruising along, and as they're on their journey, they come across this creek, and they need to cross the creek, and they're looking around, where's the best place to cross the creek? And they kind of say, okay, this looks like the narrowest part of the creek, and the most usable stepping stone rocks, and that kind of thing, the easiest place to get across. And just as they're deciding this place, there's this young woman that appears, and she also needs to get across the creek. And so one of the monks offers to just give her sort of a ride. So he gives her kind of a piggyback ride, picks her up, carries her across the creek, and sets her down, and she doesn't get wet, and all of her fine dresses and shoes and all that are perfectly okay. And so she says, hey, thank you very much, and goes on about her business, and the monks go about theirs. But the monk who did not pick up the woman was noticeably agitated as they continued their journey, leaving the creek and the young woman behind them. And he finally got just so agitated that he turned to his brethren that did carry the young woman, and he said, hey, look, this is really bugging me, but we've taken a vow that we're not supposed to have contact with women. We're not supposed to touch women. And the priest that did give her the lift looked at his brethren, and he goes, yeah, but I set her down back there. Why are you still carrying her? Right? And it's it's a silly story, I suppose, but I like it because I try to remember it when it's appropriate, which I don't always succeed at, because that's the thing. There's times that I'll be carrying around some anger or sometimes even guilt or anything that the moment to learn from it is past, right? The moment of its usefulness, as far as an interaction goes, is done with, right? There's no reason really to cling to it. But I think a lot of us have a hard time in setting those things down, and I am, that's one of the things that I struggle with. So I bring it up so that if you struggle with it too, then you're not alone. And I'm not sure what the best thing to do is, except to try to remember to set it down. And I use that story, trying to remember the story in order to, help me, set it down. And I don't know, maybe that can help you as well. If not, then maybe it's just an interesting story that you've listened to me babble on about for a few minutes anyway. And the next story is another one that I'm pretty sure, as I said just a little while ago, that I'm pretty sure it came from an Alan Watts lecture. And it's a story about this farmer. And he's out and, doing his farmer stuff out in the field and all of this. And one of his horses gets away and, runs off. And, he's out and gets up in the morning and discovers it's gone. And he's, oh my goodness, scratches his head and there he goes. The horse ran away. And then his neighbors come around and they go, oh, it's so horrible that your horse ran away, and now what are you going to do? You're without that horse, and that's sad. And then the farmer kind of looks around and he goes, well, we'll see. And then the next day, his horse returns, and not only does it return, but it returns with another horse that's, a wild horse at this point, but a horse nonetheless. And so now his neighbors come by and they go, wow, how lucky are you? You lost your horse, but now your horse came back, and that's lucky enough. But not only that, it brought you a horse, so now you're up a horse. So you profited a horse, essentially. And so the farmer says, we'll see. And the next day, his son, who's, a really excellent horseman, is, going out to see this new horse with the idea of, I think the phrase is breaking it, right, to get it tamed, I suppose, so that it's rideable and usable as a horse on the farm. And he gets thrown from the horse because it's a wild horse and it gets the better of him in the moment. And he breaks his arm after, being thrown from the horse. And so then, the father is tending to his son, and the neighbors come around and they go, oh my goodness, that's so horrible. It's bad news that your son broke his arm, and man, oh. And then the farmer again looks around and goes, yeah, we'll see. And then the next day, the army comes around, conscripting young men for the war that's going on, and his son gets left aside because he's injured, so he doesn't have to go off to war. And then his neighbors come around and go, hey, isn't that great? Your son didn't have to go to war because he broke his arm, that they managed to leave him home, and so you won't have to risk losing your son as a casualty of war. And he goes, yeah, we'll see. So you get the idea, right? It's like this up and down sort of thing. And, obviously things are bad and you can experience the fact that they're unpleasant, but maybe try not to become overwhelmed. Now again, I try to remember that story because it is easier said than done. But if you can remember it, maybe it can help you to, actually achieve the goal, right? So I guess the two things they're the things that I commonly wrestle with, right? Clinging to things that I don't need to cling to, and getting caught up in it, you know what I mean? Like emotionally letting it impact me too much. And they kind of seem sort of related to me. And a thing that I've been wrestling with quite a bit lately is value of effort. Right? I think we all kind of have this notion of what is it that we're doing with our lives, and how does it fit in with the scheme of things as far as worth and value. There are people who experience the phrase is often a calling to, that they'll become nurses or teachers or go into the clergy or, something like that. These things that obviously have benefit to the greater whole. And those of us who don't participate in those things that are necessarily obvious, sometimes, I know I am among these people that you struggle with, is what I'm doing actually, worth it? Is the effort I'm putting forth actually worth it? And not just in the material sense of, is it going to make you money or something, but does it actually contribute meaningfully to the rest of your humans. I mean, because you could be a wealthy human, but if what you're doing is kind of crummy, then, or you can be maybe not the richest person, but what if you do things that is really, really helpful to others? Then, so, which is better? It's kind of the thing. I tend to lean towards that. It's better to help humans, kind of thing. And, but so there's the thing. There's what is the wrestling point? Like, well, for example, who is more valuable, a teacher or a brain surgeon? Right? Day to day, it's the teacher. Right? Because the teacher is the one who's impacting you while you're in school and your children while they're in school or whatever. It's like ongoing impact. However, if you need the brain surgeon, which is really rare, most of us go through life and never need a brain surgeon, so they're kind of not important to us, However, if you do need a brain surgeon, then they're super, super, super important. You see, so it's all contextual. And I think there's the thing that we need to remember is that, what are we doing and how does it fit with, what's happening? And, I don't know, try to remember and see value in our contribution. It can be frustrating, but I think all of these things, going back to the monks, setting the girl down, or the monk setting the girl, well, I guess monks, both of them, right? One of them did physically set her down and just sort of left her and said, okay, that was a done thing, and the other guy was clinging to the idea of what had happened, right? So, and then again, the other idea of, clinging to things and letting them, getting caught up, so like, kind of, I guess, promoting a more of a Taoist kind of yin-yang, things go up and down, kind of thing. But, and so I'm re-bringing those up kind of to draw a thread to it that's to do with how we can help each other, right? Because when I try to think of my own value and self-worth, and I realize that, at least in this context, I'm just a guy making ASMR videos, you know what I mean? It's really not the most important thing in the world. It's not, it's just, it doesn't make $gazillion dollars. It doesn't bring me a lot of fame or admiration or any of that kind of thing. However, it does bring some value to some people, because I get the comments, people where they just simply enjoy it, and maybe they get tingles, or maybe they find it interesting creatively or whatever. But the thing that really impacts me is when people say that I've helped them with getting to sleep, or especially working through anxiety, or some kind of depression thing or something like that, where I've positively impacted their life in a way that they found meaningful, even if it was just for, a few moments. And when I have doubt about my own value as far as, doing ASMR, just that little bit of somebody saying, yeah, you really helped me out, means a lot to me. So it kind of creates a feedback loop, as it were, right? I'm doing a thing that is useful to you and meaningful to you, and you get something out of it, and then you say something to me that reassures me that what I'm doing is in fact valuable, and then it gives me sort of the impetus, right? It helps, it reduces the friction so that my momentum going forward is possible, if that makes any kind of sense. So I guess, there's the thing, right? So if we could figure out ways of encouraging each other and reminding each other to, like, don't get hung up on something and, let that go. It happened a long time ago. Or why are you still feeling guilty about that? If you've learned your lesson, there's no point in beating yourself up over it again, right? That kind of thing. But I think the world would be better if we helped each other do those things better. It's like, I remember a common complaint I've heard people do when you'd say, hey, thanks, that's a great job or something, and then somebody will say something to the effect of, what are you thanking them for, right? It's their job to do that thing for you. They're getting paid, so why would you, you don't have to thank them. And it's like, but it's better if we do. And it doesn't cost us anything, really. I mean, a few calories are spent in the thinking of it and then the doing of it, right, as far as a gesture. But the amount of calories spent doing that, and the processes in your brain thinking it, are so minuscule as to be, negligible, right? So just being supportful of each other, just being encouraging for each other, I think can be, well, I don't think, I know from my own personal experience that these things can be super, super valuable, right? So again, it's the, I guess my corny little phrase, the atheist anarchist advocating agape. So in this part of it, it's the advocating of agape once again. We should be supportive, compassionate, encouraging, loving, caring with each other. And that's, to my mind, the best way forward for the human race. Right? Anyway, so there's my ramble of all of that, and I hope you got something out of it. And I hope that you can, continue to just sort of relax and chill out. And there should be some pleasant sounds and maybe some musical sort of things and some ambient sort of things and some speech sort of things and the kind of thing that would help you relax. So I suppose with that in mind, perhaps ensure that you're in fact in a really, really, really comfortable position. If you have to, do a little bit of a wiggle thing to get the nervous energy out of your limbs and your fingers and your digits and your toes. Right? Just wiggle it all out. And make sure that you're in a good and comfortable position in a recliner with support for your back and neck, or on a bed with some pillows, or maybe sitting in a meditative lotus position, I think is what it's often called, or laying prone on the ground. I mean, whatever is comfortable for you. Just get there physically comfortable, and then you can just sort of listen to whatever it is that's happening, not worrying about it too much, because it's just audio stimulus with the intent of causing you to just be able to relax, maybe have a tiny bit of enjoyment, just a little bit of pleasure and relaxation. Just get rid of that stress. Just ignore that anxiety for the moment. It's not necessary right now. Just let it all go. Just let it slide off of you. And just let it all go. And just let it slide off of you. And just let it all go. And slide off of you. So many years ago when I was younger, I remember coming across the myth of Sisyphus, and I can't remember all of the details very well. Well, it depends on which version of the myth you've come across or heard, doesn't it? But the basics of it is that he thwarted the gods insofar as that he cheated death, and so as punishment, that he'll live for eternity, but he's going to push this rock up a hill, and then as soon as he gets to the top, it rolls all the way back down, and then he has to start over, and that's his, there you go, there's your eternity. You got your eternity, but now all you have to do is just push that rock. And and there's a lot of things to the myth that I think are pretty interesting. There's even a pretty famous thing that Camus wrote talking about it, that where you should be happy for Sisyphus. But I'll let you go read that. That's not really what I'm going to be talking about so much. It's not really. It doesn't really fit what I'm going to be trying to say about it, or I'm not even trying to say about it. Just I guess it gets used. I mean, I've even used it in a song of mine that, well, I guess for some, what is the word I'm looking for? Self-promotion, right? Shameless, I guess, shameless self-promotion. On my music channel, there's a thing, and then or actually, is it there? No, it's probably not there. It's probably on my SoundCloud thing, where there's some reference to a Sisyphus thing going on. Anyway, so it often gets used for the futility of thing, you know what I mean? But then if you can think that the thing itself is the point of it, right? So that, like, if you're looking at a task or something, or maybe even your own existence, right? I think that's part of the thing that people are thinking of, that their very existence is nothing more than rolling a rock up a hill, and then you finish the task, and then you're like, oh crap, there's just another one, and this kind of thing. And I think it comes down to a matter of perspective in a lot of ways. Well, it could be that you just spent a whole mess of effort rolling a rock, a boulder, up a hill, and you get all the way up to the top, so you finish the task, but then the boulder just rolls all the way down and you have to start over. Or you could think of it as being more like a mandala, right? That, I know that like those monks, and I'm pretty sure that's Tibetan Buddhists, but I might be wrong. But whoever these monks are that I've seen do the images, they make these gorgeous sort of geometric, circular kind of images that are just intricate patterns that are just wacky, crazy. I mean, kind of fractal in nature a lot of times, but it just takes some hours and tremendous effort, and it's just detailed and just gorgeous work. And then when they're done, they scatter all the sand. Oh, that's what they make it out of, sand, right? They're just pouring little grains of sand all over the place, just in really fine detail, just like, to the grain of sand almost. That's how accurate and detailed that the images are. And at the end of it, they just sort of brush it all away, and then you can make another one. And I think, at least in part, the message is the impermanence of life, right? But that doesn't mean that you have to turn it into waging a war or suffering or anything like that. You can make something beautiful, and then, oh wow, that was beautiful, and then you can move on to the next thing. And it doesn't have to be horrifying or scary or, it could just be what it is, right? And much like this, and it's like you've been struggling to listen to a thing and try to figure out if there's any kind of message to it. And it might be that it was just the effort of trying to understand it that was the point of it. The army to consider the young man for the war, but they didn't take far because his injuries. So this farmer goes outside one morning and he discovers that he is missing a horse. It had escaped from his farm. And his neighbors came round and they said, "Oh no, you lost a horse." And he was very sad. And then the farmer was and the next day the horse returned to its home, and along with it came a wild horse. His horse had brought home a wild horse with it. And his neighbors came round and said, "Oh, lucky you. Not only did you get your horse back, but months on a journey to get to a temple. And on that journey, they got to the stream. And they came across the stream without raising the road and just waiting. And as they got to start, a young woman shows up, and she chooses to get across. But she just doesn't let her dress or she's wet for point on yourself. So some of the boys get your figure across. And when he gets her across, he sets her down. And then the goes on her way after protecting the monk. And then the monks can continue with their journey. And after a time, the second monk can do it. So this farmer goes outside one morning, and the farmer, he discovers that his farm is missing a horse. One of his horses escaped from his farm, and his neighbors came around, and they said, "Oh no, how is the horse? That is very sad." And then the farmer will see, we will see. And then the next day, the horse returned to his farm, and the horse returned came a wild horse. His horse had brought home a wild horse with it, and his neighbors came round and said, "Oh, lucky you. Not only did you get your horse back, but now you have one more horse that you didn't have." And the farmer said, "We'll see." And the next day, his son, who was quite the horseman, was going to take the horse so that it could be used on the farm. And in the process, the horse got the better of him, and sent toppling and his arms and legs, and I set her down back there. Why aren't you still carrying? We have an oath of celibacy. We're not even supposed to even touch a woman. And you picked her up and carried her across the street. So this farmer goes outside one morning. I set her down back there. And why aren't you still carrying? He discovers that he is missing a horse. It had escaped from his farm. And his neighbors came round and they said, "Oh no, you've lost a horse. That is very sad." And then the farmer said, "We will see." And the next day, the horse returned to this farmer and goes outside one morning, and his horse, he discovers that he is missing a horse. It had escaped from his farm. And his neighbors came round and they said, "Oh no, you've lost a horse. That is very sad." And then the farmer said, "We will see." And the next day, the horse returned to its farm, and along with it came a wild horse. His horse brought home a wild horse with him. And his neighbors came round and said, "Oh, lucky you. Not only did you get your horse back, but now you got a horse that you didn't get." And the farmer said, "We'll see how much it was." And the next day, his son the horseman was going to tame the horse so that it could be used on the farm. And in the process, the horse got the better of him and sent toppling and broke his arm and leg. So could not work for quite a day. His son, quite noticed, made just keeps going to tame the horse so that it could be used on the farm. And in the process, the horse got the better of him and he sent toppling and broke his arm and leg. So could not work for quite some After a time, the one monk observed the other monk becoming quite agitated. The farmer comes out into his barn and sees one of his horses is killed. About you coming here with that woman later, his sister's good. And they say, oh, son, you know where you're about. The Arnold to consider the man for the war, but to take the farmer's son because his injuries. So this farmer goes outside one morning and he discovers that he is missing a horse. It had escaped from his farm. And his neighbors came round and they said, oh no, you lost a horse. And he was very sad. And then the farmer was despair. And the next day, the horse returned to its home, and along with it came a wild horse. His horse had brought home a wild horse with it. And his neighbors came round and said, oh, lucky you. Not only did you get your horse back, but now you have one more horse that you didn't have. And the farmer said, we'll see. And the next day, his son, who was quite the horseman, was going to tame the horse so that it could be used on the farm. And in the process, the horse got the better of him, and he sat toppling down his arm to play to do so. But no more and he crossed the stream, which came right and said, your son has got your stuff up, and now we'll come to his arm. And she sat across, and the magician said, well, save you by my magician. And the next day, the army came, so someone of the last gets your speaking across. And when he gets across, he says, that. And then goes our way after thanking the monk. And then the monks continued their journey. And after a time, the second monk who did not get killed returned to his first and says, hey brother, I'd like to talk to you about that young woman back there. And the first monk says, oh yes, reminds us of the contact with women that is our own. And the monk says, yes, I know, but I did see her back there. Why I heard you still carrying her. The farmer comes out into his farm and sees one of his horses succeed. And one year later, his neighbors get together and they say, oh, how sad, you lost the horse. And the man says, we will see. And the next day, to conscript young men for the war, but his son was left in his country he was unfit to fight. And the neighbors came round and said, "Oh, happy you, your son was spared going to war, and is therefore not a risk in being killed during the battles." And then the old man said, "We'll see."
Two months are returned to get to for a temple.
Another church, they come to the street. And they came across the street without raising up the road and just waiting. And as they're about to start, a young woman shows up, and she too sticks across. But she just doesn't lift her dress before she's wet and point for soft. So some of the boys gets his piggy across. And when he gets her across, he sets her down. And then the woman goes on her way after thinking about it. And then the man continues on their journey. And after a time, the second woman So this farmer goes outside one morning, and the farmer, he discovers that his farm is missing a horse. One of his horses escaped from his farm, and his neighbors came around, and they said, "Oh no, how is the horse? That is very sad." And then the farmer said, "We will see." And then the next day, the horse returned to his farm, and the horse returned came a wild horse. His horse had brought home a wild horse with him, and his neighbors came around and said, "Oh, you, not only did you get your horse back, but now you have one more horse that you didn't have." And the farmer said, "We will see." And the next day, his son, quite the horseman, was going to tame the horse so that it could be used on the farm. And in the process, the horse got the better of him, and set toppling and his arms and legs, Well, say a woman shows up, and she chooses to the next day. His son dresses like the horseman was going to tame the horse so that it could be used on the farm. And in the process, the horse got the better